In this video, I'm going to share 5 things that have helped me completely change how I go about street and travel photography, to not only make better images that I'm really proud of, but to also have more fun taking photographs every time I go out. In fact, I put these tips to use on my recent trip to Georgia and Armenia, which resulted in making some of my favourite photographs to date. So let's get right into it. Mindset is one of the most powerful things to harness to improve your photography fast, but if you don't get it right, it can completely derail a photo walk and might mean you miss your best photograph yet. So how do we use mindset to get the best out of our photography? Regardless of where you are, whether that's a small town in England, Tokyo or Tbilisi, the best way to approach street and travel photography is to be open-minded and most importantly to have no expectations. It took me a long time to realise this, and often I'd go out and just get upset that I wasn't seeing anything worth photographing, even when I was in what should be a great location for amazing photos. Having no expectations and being open-minded is easier said than done, especially because we always want to come away with great photographs from any trip. So what things can we do to give us the best chance of cultivating a positive mindset and increase our chances of capturing moments and making amazing photographs on the street? Well, it's pretty simple. You just need to start taking photos of anything when you go out your front door. Don't worry about capturing something special, just focus on taking photos to warm up, and then you'll start to notice more and be ready for when something exciting does present itself. So for example, when I first arrived in Tbilisi recently after a long flight, I went into the city centre and I was pretty overwhelmed. I didn't really know where to start, what to focus on and how to capture the scenes. So I just started taking photos. Photos of light, textures, street scenes, random people, and while those kind of photos might not be that great by themselves, they can definitely be powerful as part of a series. You can always delete images, but you can't take photos of somewhere once you've left. Perhaps the most underrated skill in street and travel photography is observation. If we focus on observing and photographing anything that's even a little bit interesting, then it's almost like an artist doing sketches before painting the final picture. We're working our way up to being ready and locked in for a great photo opportunity, and even if you don't get anything great in the meantime, you'll still have some nice photos capturing the environment and the mood of a place, and you'll have enhanced your observational skills, which is what improving as a photographer is all about. To have no expectations is really powerful. If you expect to get a banger each time you go out, then it doesn't happen, which is obviously more often than not, then that's going to make us unhappy and knock our confidence. If you expect nothing when you go out and look at it through the lens of sort of seeing your photography as a process, as a journey without a destination, it's just a process that matters, then the results will come over time. But what if you're out and it's really quiet, or the location you find yourself in isn't really delivering anything at all worth capturing, and it's difficult to keep that positive mindset? I used to do a lot of landscape photography, and one of the phrases I'd hear and then use a lot, almost like a mantra, is shoot to the conditions. I'd want a moody sky with amazing light at sunrise or sunset, but I'd get up early and arrive, and then more often than not it would just be flat and grey. And if I'd given up every time the light wasn't good or the weather was clear and boring, then I'd miss so many chances to get some great photographs, and I'd probably just give up and not have any portfolio at all. So the moral of the story is you need to make the most of what you've got. You can't control the situation you're in, so you just need to shoot to the conditions. So how can we apply that to street and travel photography? If you can't find anything good for a while, then practice instead. And a great way to practice when you find yourself in a situation that isn't really giving you much to photograph, maybe you can't find a story or moment, is to find and practice a composition instead. Have a look around where you find yourself and see if you can use maybe some creative framing to make a nice composition. Look for some interesting textures or reflections or light. Have a look from different perspectives. You're probably not going to take an award-winning photograph when you're not really seeing anything worth photographing, but you can still practice compositional techniques which will make you a better photographer in the long run. What if you're in an amazing place with a lot going on, but you still just can't seem to make anything work? Well, you can only photograph what you can see, so don't beat yourself up if you don't get any good work, even when you travel. Just because you're in an amazing place doesn't guarantee you're going to make amazing work. Just focus on being observant, and if you don't see anything and can't make a decent frame, then you've done all you can. I had days on this recent trip where I really didn't see anything that I could capture that would make a good photo. Did I get despondent and give up? No, I just kept on looking and just enjoyed being in a new place. I kept trying different compositions when there wasn't really much going on moment-wise, and then I revisited some cool locations I found when it was a bit busier later on, which really helped me to capture better images as I'd already sort of scoped out some potential compositions. Another example is when I went to Morocco last year. I like to photograph people up close, aiming to capture those sort of weird and wonderful moments of life. But in Morocco, the locals generally really don't want their photo being taken. So I shifted my ideas and process and I shot to the conditions, making a project on that trip, focusing more on the colourful environments of Morocco, anchored by the people that live there in a more sort of abstract way. So we've covered mindset and shooting to the conditions you find yourself in, but what if you're out and there's a lot going on, but you're just really not sure what to actually take photographs of? Once I learned about photography triggers, it completely changed my approach to street and travel photography, and my observational skills skyrocketed. I stopped missing so many moments, and I know exactly what to look out for when I go out on a photo walk. So what exactly are photography triggers, and how can you use them to make amazing work? I first heard about this term from the street photographer and author Matt Stewart, and Mike Chudley has also covered this topic really well on his YouTube channel. But this is how I see the term and how I use it in my photography. A trigger can essentially be anything that appeals to you, and that's what you actively look for when you're out taking photographs. So for example, a trigger could be a specific colour, let's say blue. So when you go out, you look for the colour blue and it gives you the aim of something to actively try to notice. Another trigger could be something as simple as ripped posters on the wall, so that's something you might look out for when you're out and about. It could be people with pets on the street, people hugging, people with umbrellas or balloons. There are limitless possibilities to what you could have for a photography trigger. One of my triggers on my recent trip was people with flowers, or just flowers in general. It was the beginning of spring and people were selling and carrying flowers everywhere, so it gave me something to look out for and capture. Having that approach meant I was likely to get photos with a similar theme that might work nicely together as a series or a project. And it also gave me a focus on the street for something to look out for and then capture creatively. Once I'd got an image of someone holding flowers, then I knew to keep looking for scenes with flowers, but then to try and find a different viewpoint or composition or moment to create variety in the flower photos I was taking. So that trigger sort of sparked a creative approach and different ideas for shots. How you want to use triggers is totally up to you. You can have a few specific things that you keep your eye out for each time you go out, while still being open-minded for other photographic opportunities. Or you can set yourself a specific trigger at the start of a photo walk to see how many photos you can get of that topic in one day. This can be a really fun approach to street photography, and it turns it into a bit of a game. If you're out with friends, for example, you can set a trigger or a topic as a challenge for the start of the day, and then compare the photos later on in the pub. I'd love to know if you have any specific triggers or themes that you look out for on your photography walks, so let me know in the comments below. A unique style is so sought after in the art world. Take a band for example. They make an album with a unique sound and people really like it, so then they make another album with a similar kind of sound and the band gets even bigger. Success, right? Well, yeah, but then the band get bored of making the same old music over and over and decide to put out an album with a completely different sound. Half of their audience might not like it and they all leave and give bad reviews, but then they attract a new audience instead, and the band have kept their ideas and creativity fresh, making music that they truly love. I get it, you probably want to have a recognisable photography style to stand out from the crowd, but a great picture is a great picture regardless of style, and I'd argue that if you're not a commercial photographer and generally do it as a hobby, then style really isn't that important. And if you try to make all of your photography fit into a chosen style, then it can really hold your growth back. I used to get really hung up trying to get a really strong sense of style in my photography, and in the past I wouldn't even take certain photos that might have been great because it didn't fit my chosen style or the label I give myself as a photographer. Sometimes I didn't even go to a location because it might not have the opportunities I wanted. But then I learned to be a photographer, not a genre. You don't have to stick to one style all the time in subject matter or also in post-processing to be a great photographer. In my opinion, experimentation is key to making amazing work and growing as an artist. But if you try to fit all the photos you take into one style or genre, then it can stop you from discovering new things down the line. But what if for a while you take photos on one subject matter or style, but then you get a bit bored of doing that and you want to try a new approach? You might think all your photos look a bit disjointed and aren't coherent with each other, and that's a problem, right? Well, not really. If you experiment and come away with images that look different to your older work, you can sort of separate your work into different projects. You can have a series of photographs taken in a certain way that tell a story as one project, and then another project of your new work that's totally different. You might have different genres you're interested in too, so don't be afraid to just take photos and not think too hard about genre or style. Just make the photos you want to make, and like I said earlier, be a photographer, not a genre. Once I'd learned to let go of style, or at least split my work up into projects when I felt like my style had changed a bit, it made me so much more relaxed about my work and then opened up myself to a load more possibilities. But sometimes I still take myself and my work a little bit too seriously, and that's why the last thing on this list is so important too. To be honest, I take my photography really seriously. I want to make amazing work that I really enjoy, but that others appreciate too. I think it's a good thing because it pushes me to get better and consistently get out there and make work, but I can often find myself getting a little bit too serious, even though it's meant to be a fun hobby. When I get too serious about my work, it gets me frustrated and overwhelmed and stops me from getting the images that I want. So if you feel the same way as me sometimes, what can we do about it? Well, it's simple, but you just need to remind yourself on occasion that it's meant to be fun, so try not to take it too seriously. If I find myself getting frustrated and stuck, then I just remind myself that this is supposed to be fun. And one of the best ways to do that is by interacting with people on the street, whether you're travelling or just out in town for the day. We often hear that street photography has to be candid to count as a street photograph, but as we said earlier, you don't have to box yourself in. You can be a photographer that doesn't stick to a specific genre. I consider myself a street photographer, but for example, on my latest trip I was out photographing in a market and a bunch of guys were playing backgammon. Usually I just snap a candid and go off on my way, but I decided to hang around for a minute. I chatted with the guys in broken English and had such a lovely interaction. When they asked where I was from and I said England, I even got serenaded by one of the guys where he sung a song about London in Armenian. That was such a fun experience, and while we were chatting and having a laugh, I got some really great photos. Is it technically street photography? Maybe not, but I don't really care. I like the photos and the moment was priceless. So when you're out on the street, don't forget to have a laugh. If you miss a great shot, yeah, allow yourself to be a bit disappointed and annoyed, but then just try to remember that other moments will come along. You get some, you miss some, and that's the nature of street and travel photography, but I couldn't think of anything else I'd rather spend my time doing. Putting these things into action like I have will skyrocket your progress as a photographer, but sometimes we can get a little bit hung up on gear, specifically choosing what lens to use for our photography. So check out this video next, which is all about finding the right focal length for you and how it can impact your street photography. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.